Hey everyone, welcome to SIFTD HQ. I'm Shane Satterfield, one of the creators of the show. As you can see, here by myself again. Mitch and I are practicing social distancing. We are sheltering in place just like everybody else. We're taking turns coming in here to put this show together. Today is the first episode of Game Face where everyone is in a different place. So wish us luck on that one. But the show, SIFTD HQ, is starting to hit its stride here. We're almost 2 months in to episodes at this point. So by now you started to figure out which segments are going to be in every episode, which ones rotate in and out. It's a good time for you to let us know which segments that we do off and on you like the most. Which ones would you like to see more of? Which ones would you like to see less of? It's the only way we can make the show better for you guys. So without further ado, let's get to episode 7.
Noobs is here to bring you the freshly announced games from the last week. If you ever wanted to be Spider-Man in VR, why wait until Marvel gets around to it? Instead, give Swarm a look. The first-person shooter with a grappling hook is so filled with enemies it almost feels like a shoot-'em-up. The key is to always keep moving, but if you're worried about motion sickness, the developers say they focused on it. Try to hold down your lunch on Oculus Rift and Quest this summer. Pong is the industry's first ever sports game, and it's evolved into tennis video games that go far beyond the paddle. If you prefer to keep it old school with a new twist, Pong Quest is tossing in some RPG elements to spice up the stew. The best part is that each area is at least partly based on classic Atari properties. With quests to complete, an abundance of ways to customize your paddler, and 50 different ball types to change things up, the idea is so crazy that it just might work. It lands on all major platforms this fall. It seems like half of all indie games released these days are Metroid clones, so developers have to come up with unique ways to capture our attention. This one should. Airhead features all the tenets of the genre, like winding level design, backtracking, and plenty of combat, but with a twist. You must collect your head and keep it inflated at predetermined filling stations. This adds a timing element to just about every task, which should keep things intense. Don't lose your head waiting for its release in 2021 for all major platforms. Animal Crossing New Horizons has proven that being stranded on a deserted island can be fun. Windbound just appeared on our treasure map, and while it's a bit more serious than Nintendo's Life Sim, it's no less beautiful. Scavenge to build weapons, hunt to eat, and build that vessel in hope of escaping to freedom. It comes off as a cross between Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild, but we'll have to wait until August 28th to know for sure when it releases for all major platforms.
Hi, it's Shane Satterfield for SIFTD News, and I'm here with the Big Six, the 6 biggest news stories in gaming for the week ending April 7th, 2020. At this point, The Last of Us Part 2 might be the last video game any of us ever play. The game has been delayed again for a second time from May 29th to an undisclosed date. It was first delayed from February of this year. Naughty Dog states that the game is basically done, and it's a logistics issue due to COVID-19. But our guess is that financial projections were not looking good. Sony also announced that Iron Man VR has been delayed to an undisclosed date. Well, the coronavirus just keeps on raining on millions of parades. Head of Xbox Phil Spencer has been steadfast in stating the outbreak would not affect the launch of Xbox Series X. That stance softened this week when he said he doesn't expect a delay, but, quote, that could change, unquote. It's the first hint that the pandemic could impact the launch of Generation 9 consoles. In unrelated news, in a recent interview with IGN, Spencer also stated that Platinum Games Scalebound has been canceled for good. It's only been a month since E3 2020 was canceled, and the ESA is already planning the dates for next year's show. E3 2021 is scheduled for June 15th to 17th, and the organization claims that its goal remains the same, to transform the event into something new. Meanwhile, the ESA has offered no further guidance on the E3 2020 digital event this June. Bethesda announced this week that it will not participate. Despite being 8 or 9 months away from launch, Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 games are exceedingly rare. The small list gets slightly bigger with Dying Light 2. It's been confirmed to be in development for both consoles just a month after it was indefinitely delayed from spring of this year. The first game is one of the biggest surprise hits of Generation 8, and this ambitious sequel impressed us at E3 2019. The smart money is on the game releasing this fall. Smart money is not a phrase we would use to describe Gearbox. The development studio has a spotty history where its financials are concerned. It was previously sued by a former employee over unpaid royalties, and according to Kotaku's reporting, it recently told its current employees that bonuses for Borderlands 3 will be lower than expected. Gearbox is a rare studio that offers employees profit sharing, but it's also notorious for paying under industry rate. The Gearbox employees Kotaku spoke to said they expect a mass exodus sometime soon. With the Resident Evil 3 remake hot off the presses and doing well with critics, it's time to turn our attention to Resident Evil 8. GamesRadar is reporting via a reliable source of Resident Evil information that the next mainline game will be played from a first-person perspective, like Resident Evil 7, but otherwise will be a complete departure from the norm. The leaker claims it originally started development as the next Revelation spin-off, but has been moved to a mainline game for release next year. Surely, this will be the first Resident Evil for Generation 9 consoles. That's it for the Big Six. I'm Shane Satterfield for SIFTD News. We'll see you next week.
Survival horror can be intimidating. With limited ammo, supplies, and inventory space, the genre presents some unique challenges. Resident Evil 3 is one of the all-time classics, and it's risen from its grave. I'm here to help you make it through Raccoon City in one piece. Ammo is a very valuable commodity and should never be wasted. A single zombie can take up to 5 headshots to die for good. Don't always go for the kill. Sometimes just getting by the enemy is enough. If you shoot a zombie in the thigh a few times with your basic pistol, it will stagger, giving you enough time to run by. Remember to take advantage of the environment. In most large areas, you can lead zombies into hazards to kill them without spending precious ammo. The new dodge mechanic may give you some courage, but use it sparingly if you're not confident with its timing. Sometimes taking a bite is better than wasting a shell. Be even more prudent with special ammo and powerful weapons that you acquire. We understand the temptation to try out that new grenade launcher, but you're given these things for a reason. Resist the urge and save them for big confrontations. If you're avoiding some confrontations, you should have a metric ton of pistol ammo. Don't waste your resources on crafting more. Having a stockpile will allow you to craft more powerful ammo when you really need it. Inventory management can really be a bummer, but an easy way to add an extra slot is to ditch the knife immediately. The inventory slot is worth more than the bullets you'll use to break crates without it. Whenever you reach a save point with a storage container, put just about everything in it, even health. When you close the container, you should have 1 green or red herb, that's it. You'll come across more herbs along the way that you can combine for full health, and without using another slot. Stockpiling herbs in the storage container will pay huge dividends when you're taking on bosses. Also, use your herbs with caution. It's okay not to be at full health. Overfilling your health means you're wasting some healing power. Certain key items have a specific number of uses and can then be discarded. Do it. There's no secret use you'll need it for later. Also, if you receive an item that appears to unlock something you passed by earlier, go back and get it immediately. Completing multiple quest objectives at once will leave you unable to collect all the bounty, and you'll have to backtrack to a storage container.
Hey everyone, welcome to Closet Raiders, where I literally raid my closets to share some of the coolest stuff I've collected in my 20 plus years working in the games industry. Now, usually this show is about swag, but the thing is I actually go through my closets for this show. I just dig around, whatever I find that strikes my fancy, I bring in and show it off to you guys. So typically it's like swag related around games, but not this time. This time I was digging around and I found some old hardware, and I want to share the different versions of the hardware and some of my cooler stories around that hardware. And that hardware is the PSP. Now I have 2 versions of the PSP here that I'm going to talk about and share a story or 2 about. We'll talk about that, we'll talk about some of the accessories for the PSP, and then we'll talk about the software and some of the media that was released for it as well. So let's take a look at the hardware first. The first thing I want to show you is the PSP 2000, not the 1000, the launch unit. This is the one that came out immediately thereafter, and eventually there was a 3000, although I never upgraded to that. It came out a little bit later. This is significantly smaller than the 1000. It's definitely a lot lighter. But the key feature that this has that the other one didn't have is the ability to plug in a cable and play it from your television. That was one of the big innovations for the 2000. Now, there are some caveats with that. Like in a lot of cases, you could only play PlayStation 1 games at their full resolution on the TV, and there's a bunch of literature you can look up. I'm not going to bore you with the details here. But that was kind of the big change for this, is PlayStation started to realize, hey, this handheld thing isn't working so great for us. Maybe we need to figure out a way to get our handheld games on the television. And here is the PSP Go. One fun thing about doing this show is that you understand how high quality a lot of the products are, or if they're not. Leaving something in a closet or in a drawer for a really long time will show you if they use good materials to make something. And in this case, Sony does not pass. You see these white marks on this case? This is actually a leather case, but because the leather was actually just coated with this blue color, it's all chipping off. This all happened with it just sitting on a shelf in my closet, by the way. This was not from it getting banged around. But this is the PSP Go, and it comes with these cool cases. And you can open the case, and then you can play it right from the case, which I think is a pretty cool feature. But you can see how much smaller it is, and I'll bring this one in so you can see the difference. See how much smaller it is than even the 2000, and then here's the coolest thing about it. It flips up, and you have your controls hidden underneath there. Now, I'll say this, once I got the PSP Go, I never used this one again. I only used this one. And the big thing about this is, it did not take UMDs. It removed the UMD drive. So for most people who only bought this, the only way they could buy games for this was digitally. They could never buy retail games and play it on this. So again, way ahead of its time. It saw the future of digital only, and it was right there to try to take advantage of it. So anyway, there's the PSP Go. You can see the port on the bottom there, and that made it much more likely to be able to connect with televisions and play games at full resolution. But again, only games that you downloaded. And what I ended up doing with this is I ended up finding games that I love to play a lot. I was a big fan of the MLB franchise on the 2000, and then I ended up downloading it for the PSP Go. Baseball games are great for handhelds because you can just pause it at any point and just pick it right up. I played a lot of tower defense games, so I basically loaded this up with games that I knew I liked to play for a long time, or games that were really big and really long. Can show off a little bit more of the hardware here for you guys. Here's the top. Comparing that to the top of the OG PSP, you can see there's a lot more stuff built into the Go, but it's actually smaller. So that just is a clear sign of how technology advances over time and how they can make things smaller and have more functionality over time. And it didn't take long. Now the PSP got so big that it ended up creating like a cottage industry all on its own for accessories. And once the PSP 2000 came out, that really kind of caught fire. PlayStation really started like pumping out things for the system. So here are the headsets PlayStation released just for the PSP. Again, unopened, have never been opened, just brand new. These probably cost like $50 a piece when they came out. Now they're probably worth like 95 cents. It's just the way it goes. I'm sure these are even decent technology because they were made by Sony, and Sony makes good earbuds, but they're old, and so therefore they probably have limited value. And then here is a cradle case, and this thing's got some weight to it, man. This is not a cheap piece of electronics. Again, unopened, but this is a nice way you could just put it in the cradle and it would just charge on its own. When you needed it, you picked it up and took off with it just like the Switch. Funny, huh? Let's move on to games, and let me tell you, I got some games. So this whole Ziploc is full of preview code. Silvers is what they're called. Silvers has not been around for a while. Probably the last time we got Silvers was the Xbox 360, PS3 era. And what they are is they're just production versions of games without the screen printing on them. And with the PSP, obviously, it had this UMD medium that was proprietary. Only PlayStation could make them, and therefore, you basically, if you're a publisher or a developer, you had to pay to have these games made for journalists to review them. So let's see what I got here. I have, here's Sonic Rivals 2 for PSP, and you can see it's not a finished game. It's just got the name of the game printed on it there. And I literally have hundreds of these. Look at this. In fact, let's start going through some of these so I can kind of pull out the rare ones. There might be games in here that were actually never released for the PSP. Let's take a look. All right, so I did a little bit of sorting of this stuff before I came in today to film this. So I split it up in the silvers and the media. So I'll set the media aside here. Let's start going through some of these silvers that I have, because again, I feel like some of this stuff may be preview code for things that never ended up coming out. Gretzky, Untold Legends 2, did that ever come out for PSP? What's this one? Race Driver 2006. Here's Puzzle World from Capcom. Here's God Eater Burst. I'm pretty sure that came out in the US. Neopets. I don't know if that came out, who knows. Field Commander for the PSP. Dynasty Warriors, Volume 2. What else we got here? WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. The Con, remember that game? There's a PSP version. I don't even know what this is. Maverick Hunter. There's Ratchet and Clank. There's a silver of Ratchet and Clank. Loco Roco. There's actually a retail version of FIFA. Mercury Meltdown. Looks like Jak and Daxter. NBA 10, so you can see what years these, MLB 08, you can tell what years these are all from. What else we got here? This looks like Gitaru Man Lives. That actually might have never come out for PSP in the US. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, publishers would send me these silvers, we'd play them, we'd capture footage when we could, and I think during this era I was working at X-Play on G4, so a lot of these, this code came through X-Play ultimately, and then some at Game Trailers I collected after I left G4 and became the EIC over at Game Trailers. So anyway, I have tons of this stuff, by the way, tons of these silvers. Who knows what I'll end up doing with them. You can see we only got through maybe a third of what I brought here. And there was also media released. Now, as I said earlier, the UMDs are proprietary media. Only PlayStation could manufacture these. And so they had a stranglehold on the market, and Sony decided to publish UMDs that were just videos. Here's a Street Fighter anime. What's this one? I don't even know what this is. Night Warriors or something. Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero horror film. I have it on UMD. What else we got here? Ghost in the Shell, I have on UMD. Metal Gear Solid, the digital graphic novel. I have a silver UMD of that. What else do I have here? Children of the Corn, remember that horror movie? I have that on UMD. And I think that's all I got. But yeah, so they put out a lot of anime. I think like the classics came out, like Akira, Vampire Hunter D, and stuff like that. But yeah, they were like $20 per movie. And my guess is they did not sell especially well. So you may be able to find these UMDs all over the place. Of course, then you would have to have a PSP to actually play.
It's Turn It Up Tuesday, the biggest games, albums, movies, and TV shows releasing this week. One of the biggest game releases of 2020 is coming, so buckle up. The Disaster Report franchise has been a cult hit across the last decade, and the timing couldn't be better for the fourth game to launch. Summer Memories thankfully takes place after an earthquake instead of an outbreak, but it's still a game where you must struggle to survive a calamity. Finding escape routes around crumbling buildings and panicked people is sure to put you on edge, so think before you buy. Survive on PS4, Switch, PC, and PlayStation VR beginning today. Generations of children have played with Plastic Army Men, and now grown men can start a new tradition with Hinterhalt 3. It's a first-person multiplayer shooter where you take control of toy soldiers across 16 different maps with the usual themes. There will be 4 different modes ranging from capture the flag to zombies when it launches for PC on Thursday. Final Fantasy VII took the franchise from niche hit to international phenomenon, but its archaic presentation has not held up well across the years. An entire new generation of players is about to find out what all the noise is about when a ground-up remake launches for PlayStation 4 on Friday. Nothing has gone untouched. There's a new combat system, new voice acting, gorgeous 4K visuals, and so much more. With a story strictly focused on the city of Midgard, The first episode of the series captures just a small part of a much bigger story. It's the most anticipated video game remake of all time, and it's finally here. It's time for Best Albums of the Week. You can only listen to so many podcasts, right? Well, it's albums singular. There's just one noteworthy release, and it comes from post-punk band Sparta. Their new album, Trust the River, swims in the same waters as bands like the Horrors and Eagles. Songs build and descend, washed in feedback with driving bass guitar provides the backbone. If you're looking for something cathartic in these serious times, give it a listen when it launches on Friday. Now let's get caught up in some big movie industry news. Disney has been radio silent since pulling almost all its films for the next 5 months, but it's finally announced that Mulan will avoid video on demand and launch in theaters in late July. Black Widow takes Marvel's Eternals old date of November 6th. The entire Marvel catalog has been pushed back by one release spot due to the outbreak. Sony has pushed its big 2020 releases into next year. Ghostbusters Afterlife and Morbius are now slated for March 2021. The Uncharted movie has been moved from March to October of next year, and Peter Rabbit gets yet another release date for January, yet still before Easter. Tom Hanks' movie Greyhound has no release date yet whatsoever. No film is safe. If you're a parent and looking for something new to distract your kids, Trolls World Tour is releasing straight to video on demand instead of launching in theaters. The plot doesn't really matter, but it's another 90 minutes your kids won't be trying to shove the toaster down the garbage disposal. Ozzy Osbourne and Mary J. Blige are in the cast, so it won't have you crawling up the walls if it's on in the background. Spend some time appreciating your child's teachers this Friday. Or maybe while your kids are dancing in the living room, you can escape to the basement for the 3rd season of Killing Eve. It follows an MI6 agent tracking a female assassin and has won multiple Emmys and Golden Globes. As they learn more about each other, their feelings start to get in the way of the mission. Both Sandra Oh and Jodie Comer have been excellent in the series, so expectations are high for its debut Sunday on AMC and BBC. Finally, Paramount has scheduled A Quiet Place Part 2 for Labor Day weekend, where it'll go head-to-head with Monster Hunter. Tom Cruise flies into theaters December 23rd with a sequel to Top Gun, and who doesn't want a side of Tom Cruise with their Christmas cheer?
Okay, that's it for Sifted HQ, episode 7 here on Sifted Games at sifted.net. Again, let us know about the segments you really like from this show, the ones you'd like to see more of, the ones you'd like to see less of. Tune in today at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern for Game Phase. Who knows what's going to happen on today's live stream, but it should be fun. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.